Hey, Renee.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
I used one of your Canva creations the other day. I
Oh,
forget
good.
what it was now, but I was, trying to get new ideas and get the creative juices flowing. And I came across something you did, and I was like, "Oh, that's nice."
Well, good. Tiffany's here. She's doing a lot of them too, so I'll let her
Oh,
know.
good. Okay, good. Awesome.
Good.
Hey everyone, how are y'all doing today?
Hi, Nora.
Hi.
Awesome. Are we still waiting for a few more to join, I assume? I think
I
it
think
just
so.
turned 3. Give everyone a minute to log on there. All right, and can everyone see my screen right here okay? Just to double check, can you see my screen right here with the account pulled up and hear me okay? Audio levels are good?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you so much. I'm not sure. Matt, do you know how many participants we're expecting today?
Nope.
Okay.
I am not. Let's give them another minute or two. So are we gonna have time for some Q&A? I know a lot of people have questions, and
Yeah.
if that's all right.
Definitely. And first off, I do definitely just want to apologize. I just saw your message right before I hopped on here. Seems like my afternoon coffee before our last training definitely resulted in some speed talking. So please, my apologies if you had any
No
trouble
problem.
following along.
We
Definitely
talk
be sure to
we
keep
talk slow in the
your pace
South.
there. I know it's just that northern difference, I think sometimes. I always got to remind myself slow down. So please, I've got the chat feature up. Feel free to unmute if I end up going a little fast at any point. Just remind me, slow down, do my best to keep it pretty slow. Or if you need anything repeated, please let me know. Any questions come up.
No problem.
Happy to circle back to anything. But definitely just kind of as we have some people on who are maybe on last week, just to get started as we're having some people join. Before we kind of jump in today, do want to kind of check and see any questions that surfaced from our last training last week or so since we talked, anything that anyone kind of maybe would like to circle back to start before we kind of jump into some performance review information.
Yeah, I have some questions. I don't know if you're going, Liliana here.
Perfect.
Okay, so I don't know if you're going to cover later on. I would like to know how you do the header, like the one that we use for the template. If you want to change that and you want to do another header, how we do that.
So when you're in a campaign and you're creating sort of this, I guess for this snapshot, it's kind of that header there.
Okay.
Quick question, when you're in your account, are you typically using the templates that are shared down with you? Or are you typically working off of campaigns that you've created yourself and sort of free-forming them in the editor?
I start with one that was done by somebody else, but I would like to change to make my own template and do a different header with a different pictures of furniture, but I have no idea how to do it.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you want to change the header, so anything that's shared down that you're typically working off of a template that's been shared down with you, there will be some elements that are locked in. So if you are working off of a template that's been shared with you, there's a pretty good chance that the header image in that template for that campaign has been locked down. So in that case, if you're using a template, you're not going to have as much flexibility there to change the header. But if you go ahead and start from scratch,
Okay.
which to do, you would want to come into your campaigns, create a new campaign. And this is where you would be able to have kind of that functionality to be a little more flexible. So just for example, I'll name this Nora Test so we can kind of look at that. And so now we're being dropped into our kind of campaign builder. So normally what I'm assuming your process is that you come in, you choose from your gallery, kind of your starting point. So either your recent emails or your shared templates.
Correct.
Now this does depend on your access. So Matt may be able to answer a little bit further. It
Well,
looks like there's-
we created a basic one, one with just furniture that we just took a shot. But we also did one with just a Show Homes logo, and it looks like, Leslie, you added this color, yep, red logo, right, to yours?
To
I
mine,
did.
no, I didn't do anything. I would
No,
like
no,
to.
no,
do
no,
an-
no, I'm not talking about you. We're looking at Charleston right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
If
so-
you look at, go to the shared templates, Nora,
Sure.
if you go to the shared on the left-hand side, okay.
Oh, let me jump back in. And we are, bear with me just a moment. And so these shared campaigns here, is that usually where you're starting from?
Where you were before is normally where I start.
Okay, like once you've created the campaign here,
Yeah,
so you come in, you choose the campaign name, and then you choose from these shared templates right here typically.
go to the shared. Yeah, it should show the red logo.
Take a moment to load here.
There's a
Looks like
bunch of them. I think that's the one Matt's talking about right there.
This one.
The
Yeah.
fourth one, I use the fourth one, but I would like to change the impression of the furniture more modern.
So
No,
is
this
this
one.
the one you're talking about?
No,
No,
underneath that,
below.
underneath that.
This
That
one.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, we only have one. We'd have to create, we don't have a template where you can change the photo out because it's hard coded. That was done by Emma. So what you'll probably want to do, Liliana, is just use the one with the logo instead of furniture on it.
Okay, I know I ask you, but I hope like I can do something about, because I try to create a new header, but the header I created is not, I cannot do it for the entire page. It's shorter for some reason. It doesn't go to all the entire page.
So if you're creating from this template, from example, so what Matt means is this header right here. So
Yeah.
this head logo, this is going to be one that's been hard coded in. So this is something that's not going to be editable when you're using this template, just because it's been hard coded and that's sort of being controlled at the asset level.
Okay.
If you do need a template created for yourself that maybe has some different images, you may want to work with Matt or someone else sort of at that HQ level of the marketing team. So you may have some other people assisting you, Matt, I'm sure. But then in that case, then you would be able to edit these sort of features and create different templates then. So I would think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that may be something that is more of an internal conversation. If you do want to create some more templates with some different header options, just since right now it looks like the way the sub accounts are set up, when you're creating an account, you really only have access to the ones that have been shared with you. So it doesn't look like sub accounts right now are able to go in and create one from scratch. And so that's just based on the permission level. So any template updates that would need to happen at the asset level. Of course, if at any point, maybe that permission level changes, you would have access to create a campaign completely from scratch, but that's just kind of based around the way that the campaign and template access is set up right now, if that makes sense.
I'm fine. I'm not that sophisticated. I just thought that I can create a header by myself. If not, I don't want to get into. It's fine.
Yeah, so no problem. So these ones are that's just because it's set at the top. So we would need you would need a template created at the asset level. So sort of on a manager HQ level, and then share down with the header that you want. And then you would be able to use that template for those campaigns. In that
Okay,
case.
that's good. Can
Just
I
a
ask
slightly
another
different
question?
process.
Can I
Sure.
ask another question?
Please. Go ahead.
When I write the text, I try to say to do the insert email or phone number, but instead I'm not able to say, okay, the email click and became the email shows entirely. When I do the link, is that normal?
So if you're like linking out a button here to an email or a phone, is that kind of what you're asking?
Yes, it shows like the full email or the full, like it's not like when you go in the website, they say click here for the phone number, so they click over. So I cannot do that. Is that normal or I do
You
something
need to
wrong?
add you need to add the linking piece to the number or the email that you want to have.
I added, but it still shows the same. This is, I don't know what, because when you hover on the text on the right hand side is just the link. So I press the link and I put the email or website or whatever it is, but it still shows, doesn't matter if I put the email, type it, or I put the link, shows the same.
So so if you're using a telephone number, one thing I will say, if you're trying to link out so that someone like can click this button and it will populate that, there is a hyperlink sort of tag here. So what you could do instead of a link, if it's a phone number, is, and I can send this tag out as well in the recap, you can sort of add this telephone number. So it would be this tel, and then you would want to add the phone number behind it. This will link out to a click to call then. So you would want to go ahead, have this tel, and then the colon, and then whatever phone number you want it to link out to call. So that's going to be one way to add that option to link out right from the email, so that if someone's, viewing this email on mobile, they just want to press the button and call, you're going to want to use this little TEL : tag and then add your phone number. And then for email, what you can actually do is, I'm going to jump into this text for a moment.
Okay.
And you have this option here. So if we come over to insert, so as soon as we're in a text box, we're going to get this additional toolbar. We can choose this link button. Sorry, I said insert and I meant link. And you can actually link out to the email address. So this is going to be your best option if you, want to let someone know to email you, email your customer service team, and link out to that email. You're going to want to choose the link button, hop over here to the email address, place the email address where you want it to go. So whatever inbox you're kind of monitoring for this.
Can you show, I do
the
this,
subject line.
I do this, but I don't like how it shows. Can you show us how it looked like? Can you do an example?
Yeah. So for example, if I'm going to go ahead and say, maybe I want it to go to my email address here at Campaign Monitor, I can do this. If I wanted to pre-populate the subject line, so maybe, customer service request, if that's something that would be, I can go ahead and insert this here. And it's just going to link out to that email address. So what you would probably want to do is include some additional copy. So to learn more about our staging options, email us at, and then they can click. This will automatically populate an email to this email address. Your other sort of option will be, if you want it to have the same feel as a link here, you can jump in here. So that's one option from the link, or you can use a similar tag for the email. So just like we saw that TEL, we could do mail to, and then you would want to put your email address that it's going
mail to, just a second. Mail to.
And so mail to, and now when they click that button, the link that's behind that button will now actually be the same sort of email link. The only difference is that here, you're not going to be able to pre-populate that subject line for them. So they will just have to, put in their own subject line, probably not a big deal, but it will pull out that email address option for you.
Perfect, is all I want to know. So mail to, and the other one is tel, and that's it, okay.
Yep, and so I'll send those tags over to you so you have them handy, but those are going to be kind of the easiest ways to place a phone number, email address behind a button or link, just like you kind of normally would.
Perfect, thank you so much.
And there was a question from Santa Fe. Just so I understand, we can add whatever phone number instead of a website link, and it'll go directly to a phone to dial us. Is that how it works?
Yep, so if this link, maybe call us now to learn more. If someone presses this link, as long as they're on mobile, it's going to instantly call them. If someone does this from their desktop, it really depends on their computer. So for example, if I were to call that from a Mac, it might link me out to a FaceTime audio call. So this works best for people who are answering on mobile, but some people, depending on their computer, may have options to call out as well from their desktop. So just depends on that setting there for them.
All right, good deal.
Awesome. Any other questions about this campaign part, audience, or anything else that we've kind of covered?
Can I ask one more question, or somebody will shoot me?
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, Matt. You know, I'm a fan, no, Fama.
No, go ahead.
How we introduce, so I try to get in the Facebook, follow Facebook or Twitter, whatever. So I try to put it in and looks horrible. I couldn't move it around. How I do that?
So with that, what you're most likely going to want to do, so you do have some of these options here. These are going to be, again, one of those things that's hard coded into the template. So if you wanted to adjust these sort of logos, that's something that's hard coded in. You'd need to have, similar to the header, sort of an updated footer there at the template level. But what you could do is you can bring in this actual follow box. So if I drag this in for a moment, you can drop this in, and then you can you'll just want to finish out what the URL looks like for yourself, so for each one that you want included. And then from here, you can choose the icon set. So if you want to, bring in your own icons, upload them as images and place your social media links behind them, you can do that if you have like a very brand specific icon set to use. Otherwise, you can choose from one of these sets. And you can also switch to black and white if that's a little bit more similar. The ones here in this footer, again, those are hard coded in. That would need to be adjusted on a template level. But if you're adding some of these links maybe somewhere else in your email, best way to do it is going to be dragging in this follow block, adding in the ends of your handles for each link that you want included, and then choosing this icon set here. And you can also choose size, orientation, so you can adjust those settings as well if needed.
And I can drag them anywhere on the text.
Yeah, so if we go ahead and save that, we can come over here, and once we have that yellow outline, we can now pull it up, move it up here. If we wanted it further up, we can add it down here. So it is going to have its own section, but it will be, movable throughout the campaign.
How you move the box?
So let's say we're looking, so you're going to want to hover into the box, and as soon as you see the yellow highlight that's highlighting this content section, you're going to want to come up here to these arrows. Your mouse will kind of change to drag, hold down, drag, and then just drop it into any of these boxes that are available to move it around.
Oh, okay. And can we write something on the pictures? So we can you put something on top of the pictures, like the before and after, or we have to upload it already with the before and after?
So if you wanted it to be text that's sort of like, trying to think, like overlaid on that image, you would want to do the overlay on the image before you load it. You can like add text underneath, you can add captions here. But if you did want to upload it in the image and it has sort of that superimposed text, you would want to kind of make that edit to the image before uploading it in.
Okay. And how you add caption?
So with the caption, so let's say we jump in here. So again, we're going to go ahead and sort of grab this tab. We're going to want to come up here to this gear tool. So we've got the section highlighted that has our image. If we jump over to our settings, actually in this little toolbox that pops up, we're going to want to go from styles to settings. And here we can turn captions on and off. So right now you do have those captions on. If you wanted to turn them off, you could do that right there.
Okay.
So you can do that for any image block.
Okay. Perfect. I think I'm done so far. Thank you so much.
No problem. Great question.
So,
if you have any more?
Question from Mainline Philadelphia. Did we cover how to embed a video? So I think you did last time, but you want to cover that again real quick?
Yeah, no problem. So for a video, what you're going to want to do, and so we don't, the whole video won't be sent because of course that would cause some sending issues, but you can link out to a video. So the way that you're going to want to do that is choose this video content block option, drag it in, and now it's going to ask you to enter the link that you are going to be hosting out to. So it has to be hosted outside of Emma, but you can go ahead and place that link. So, okay, looks like I had a Calm app. You're probably going to want to use some alternate text. So, maybe Calm video, whatever it's about. That way anyone who needs some accessibility is using a reader, they can know what that video is. You can change the fit if you need to. So large, medium, extra large, adjust the padding. And then from here, once you insert the video, you're going to see it pulls the thumbnail from wherever it's being hosted. So if you don't like the thumbnail, it is pulling directly from YouTube in this case, whatever the thumbnail is there. The workaround for that, if you want a different thumbnail, choose the still that you want. You can edit the image to place a play button over it. Bring that then edited thumbnail in as an image and place the video link behind it. So that's kind of our best workaround if you don't want the thumbnail to be that which is being pulled from YouTube or Vimeo or wherever it's being hosted. You can sort of manually edit it so it looks like a video and it's just an image with the link placed behind it.
Can you show us how to do that?
That would actually need to happen outside of the platform. So that would be something that maybe would happen in Photoshop or any other sort of editor that you have. So that one's just sort of going to be more of a design option to pull the image that you want just based on the stills, add a play button over it, and then bring it in. So we don't have the option and functionality to do it in Emma. It's just something that would need to be created as a image outside of Emma and then brought in, unfortunately. But otherwise, it will just pull in the thumbnail that you have kind of set based on that YouTube video, Vimeo video, etc.
All right.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Sherry from Minneapolis, work with Ann Jensen and Ted Warren. And I just had a couple of quick questions, if it's okay to ask right now.
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay, cool. I just was not on the first call. However, I have been the one that's been doing Emma for Minneapolis. And I tell you, it's one of those things that the more you use it, to the point earlier of all the questions, it's just the easier it gets. And I know for myself, it just got to the point where I almost like had to kind of press every button in the settings, whether it's in a text box or a photo or whatever, kind of to see what every button did, whether it's just like you said, padding or margin and margin color and background color and all that stuff. But definitely in my mind, those are the things that take these messages to a more professional level.
Mhm.
So that's been really interesting to learn. I did not know about being able to create the call now button that you were talking about. So I would love to have that link or that information sent as well.
Definitely.
I've been comfortable with linking to our website and so forth from the campaign. Okay. And then also, I just want to say a little tidbit that I found really helpful, but talking about pictures, and we're certainly always trying to make sure we're getting good befores and afters and getting them in the right place so that everybody that needs to use them has access to them.
Mhm.
Emma's database is different than our Show Homes database, et cetera, et cetera. So we're constantly working out how to best get what we want in Emma, but it works. But what I have found too is that it's important to use professional photographs. And I don't know if you've covered this or not, but boy, one of the things that has been real helpful is going to Getty Images and using free images from there.
Yeah, there's a ton of free, like copyright-free sites. So just like
Oh, yeah.
Pexels would be another
So-
one. If you Getty, some have subscriptions. So yeah, and the other part about that is if
I've
you're-
been able to pull really nice photos for free from there, depending on whatever your message is for that particular mailing. I'm just saying, helpful hint. It's been a good thing.
Yeah, and even to kind of go off of that point, if we jump into our campaigns and you do have some great images maybe stored that you'd like to use, you can always add them to your image library here. And that way they're always easily accessible to you as you're creating a campaign. Maybe then you don't search as much through your folders, but uploading those images right into that asset library here for your campaigns is definitely a very easy shortcut to kind of keep that organized for yourself.
Yeah, and I think you pretty much have to do that to use them anyway, and then you might want to use them again. Professional paint, pictures, so on and so forth. It's pretty cool. Can I ask one last question? And that is because I just want to make sure I wasn't insane. Back in October, we had a broker open for a new home manager home. And I know at that time that, excuse me, I put an invitation together from a book of templates that are no longer there. Am I crazy?
So
in other words, I think there was a whole catalog of maybe Emma templates that was there for a little while that's no longer there. So now we just have either we kind of create our own or use the Show Homes templates or what was shared. But for a little while there, I could look at a whole lot of different templates.
Yeah, and so that template gallery is still available based on the way the sub accounts are set up. So maybe the permission levels changed a bit from that time. So right now it looks like your team and like your sub accounts have access only to the shared templates and sort of those like recently sent. But certainly you could, depending on how that access would work, that sort of internal process, You could,
Okay.
if the permission level is changed, then that template gallery would be accessible again. Right now, it's just sort of
Okay.
based on regulating those campaigns to only be available to the shared templates that have kind of been branded. But the template gallery does exist. You're not crazy. It's just kind of based
Okay,
on
good.
account details there.
And believe me, I branded it, with our logo and all that kind of stuff. But it was like, wait a minute now, where did that all go? Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I did
There's
see
a question from Kansas City. Can we drop in a video movie taken on our phone as a photo file?
So that one you would not be able to do because we're actually, we wouldn't be able to send a video like as an attachment in an email. That could create a lot of deliverability issues just since it's such a large file. What you could do in that case, if you have a video movie that you want to include in a campaign, I would recommend uploading it to a video hosting site like YouTube or Vimeo, and then linking out the way we just saw with that video block. But unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to just bring a full video file directly into the campaign, just because that would cause a lot of deliverability problems. Often that would end up, the campaign could end up in spam because of that. So you would just want to host it somewhere else, even if you host it on a landing page somewhere, and then link out to that video from there.
All right. That may be all the questions for now.
Awesome.
So
I have one more.
Sure.
Sam, so you were talking about deliverability. So every time I send the email out, ends up as a test in my spam. I don't want the same things happen with who going out. I know you show us that we have to press something. If you can show again, I check it and the showhomes.com is there. So I still don't understand why it ends up in spam.
So this authentication that we talked about last time, this
Yeah.
DKIM,
Yeah.
this is actually ghost font, so it's just guessing that this is your domain. So you would actually need to place showhomes.com in there, save it, did not find the necessary DNS. So you would need to set up the DKIM first. So these instructions here, which I can share again, but you may have someone on your IT team who helps a bit with this. So
yeah,
basically you'd
we're
want
working
to,
on that internally right now.
okay, perfect. So it sounds like if that's sort of an internal IT project, that's something that you should see shortly kind of populate if IT is doing that now. And Matt, I will say if everyone is sending from the show homes domain and you want the same validation hash across all of them, so you only want to set it up once, not in every individual sub account, our support team can actually override that for you and help you out with that. So if you'd like me to, I can put in a request with them to
Yeah, if you
help you
could,
with
that would,
the hash.
I think that would be helpful. Thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll get you in touch with them and they'll be able to sort of force down that standard hash for everyone. So you won't have to do it once.
All right.
Awesome. Let me just jot that down really quick. So I can shoot that over after our call to them. Perfect. Well, we can certainly circle back for questions at the end as well. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into response to start off with, kind of looking at how a campaign performs after it goes out. And then if we have questions at the end or need to circle back at any point, of course, any questions, pop them in the chat, let me know. More than happy to cover them. So last time we talked about sending a campaign. So once you've created that campaign, you've chosen your audience, you've scheduled it to go out, it sends. As soon as that campaign sends, we're going to start gathering that data on the back end, those performance metrics, so that you can review that pretty quickly once that campaign goes out. I usually recommend giving 24 hours before you look at your response data. That just gives people enough time to actually engage, take a look, open it up, click. So I do recommend giving a little bit of time. But from here, if we navigate into response, we're going to see all of our mailings that have recently gone out. So we'll see our sent mailings, we'll see our test mailings. So if we sent a test to ourselves or others, we'll see those there. And then we'll also see our automated. So we'll talk about automation in a moment, but we can see the response for those automated emails as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pick one that went out not so recently, so people had some time to engage. So this is really going to be reporting for campaign by campaign basis. So if I jump into this, this is going to be kind of your whole view of all of the details of how people engaged with this campaign. So of course, at the top, you've got your open rate, so percentage and how many people open this campaign, your click to open rate, so how many of those people that opened actually clicked, your delivery rate, bounce rate, and opt-out rate. So you've got kind of all of those performance metrics at a glance. And then from here, you're also going to see sort of your snapshot of your campaign. So what's really nice about the snapshot of the campaign, this click map, you can sort of just scroll through it. And then once you see a little yellow bubble or green bubble, that's going to be where someone's clicked. So you can kind of hover, see where in the campaign people are engaging. Typically, people are going to engage further up above the fold. So my recommendation is always to include a call to action pretty far up, a link pretty high up if you want to drive traffic, drive an action. The closer to the top it is, the more engagement and clicks it tends to get, just as people kind of choose that first action point. But as you go through the email, you're going to be able to see everywhere where someone has clicked. So we see this one, this big red call to action, got a few clicks here. And as we go through the survey results, we can kind of see that got some interest. And then if we had any interest sort of down here in the footer, we would see that. So this is nice just to kind of get an idea visually of where people are engaging. You can also switch to the list, to this list view. And this is going to show you how many clicks across how many trackable links. So you'll see the links included in the email, and you'll be able to see what percentage of clicks happened at that link, how many that actually is numerically, as well as you can kind of keep going down the line for all of the links that were included and see what percentage, what that breakout is for link clicks. So kind of two ways to view where in the campaign people are engaging. And then you've also got these different opens by device. So most people are opening on desktop. So one thing that signals is you always want to preview and test in your desktop inbox, make sure that looks good. And then you can also see opens by client. What I will say for opens by client, it's pretty common to have a high unknown down here. And that's just because a lot of these different email clients don't report. So based on their security settings, they won't report that they've been opened that way. So Gmail, Apple Mail, Outlook sometimes will report that. AOL, Yahoo Mail, Outlook.com. Sometimes those ones, security settings, they just won't report that. So you may notice that is pretty often. These ones are really the ones that will show you that breakdown. You're also going to get just the details about the mailing. So what the subject line was, who it went to, so you can see the audience that was chosen. You can also open the web view in a new window. So if you need to check out the email yourself in the browser, you can do that right here. You can export, can save as a PDF. So either saving this response as a PDF to look at, if you need to share it with someone, or save that web view of the campaign as a PDF as well. You always have the option to export this response data into an Excel sheet. If you need to look at the data another way, you're definitely able to do that. And then if you want to compare mailings, that will pop you back out into that response tab, and you can choose a couple of different mailings to look at. So we'll see that in a moment. But from here, you can jump into a couple of different tabs. So the first tab is going to be opens. So this is going to tell you every subscriber who opened the mailing in a trackable way. So of course, you can see all of the subscriber details right here of who opened, when they opened. We don't have a toolbar right now to search, but you can use the Control F function, Command F function, if you need to find someone in particular. And one of the really nice things here is that you can use this, save this tab as a segment. So for example, if you sent this campaign and not as many people opened it as you were expecting, pretty important message, you could save this segment out of the people who did open it. And then when you go to resend this email, you could exclude that segment from the resend. So then anyone who's already opened it wouldn't receive it again, but then you are giving the rest of your audience that additional chance to open it and engage. So you can easily save out these people as a segment. The other option you have here is going to be clicks. So those who actually clicked within the mailing. So can filter by all of the links, or if you want to see people who clicked particular links, you can choose the exact link that you want to look at and see who clicked each link within your campaign from this drop down here. You do also have the option to save this tab as a segment. I personally don't find much of a use for this tab. Certainly you may. Typically, I tend to find that this open segment tab makes a little more sense. But if you would need to use this, save it as a segment, maybe this is a very particular email and the people who have clicked have indicated interest in something, and now you want to use that to target further, can definitely use that sort of saving this tab out as a segment for targeting in the future. So overview opens clicks. We've also got shares. So this is going to be if someone shares your campaign from those options in the footer. So it looks like, Will, this person came in and they went to the footer of the email and they shared that campaign on Facebook. So that's awesome. We don't often see this, typically not a huge amount, but you would be able to see if anyone forwarded the campaign from the footer. You won't see it if they just forward it as normal from their sort of like top of the email, but if they do forward it from the footer using that option, you would see that here. And if they shared across any other social media links, you would see that share, what that total share was, and who shared that. And then if you had like Google Analytics, you would be able to track the traffic from those social networks. We've also got new signups. So again, this has to do with the footer of the page. So in our footer, you've got those different share options, and then you've got that option if you received this email as a forward from a friend and you want to sign up, there's a little link there for anyone who received it as a forward to sign up to join your mailing. Typically, we won't really see this just because people tend to navigate to the website, then sign up. But if someone does sign up from this mailing, you will see those individuals here. And then lastly, opt-outs. So anyone who received this campaign and opted out of receiving future campaigns, you're going to be able to see these people right here. You can export them if needed, but they'll automatically be added to that opted out tab in your audience management section and suppressed out of future campaigns for you. So a lot of detail. You can always export this response data if you need to, but that's going to be kind of your basic campaign overview. So once you've sent a campaign, give it some time to get some traffic, and then you can jump into this view and really take a look at these different engagement performance metrics. So any question on this sort of response view? Doesn't seem like it right now, but if any do come up, we can always circle back. But it is pretty straightforward, but definitely every time you send, I recommend the next day, just coming in and taking a look and sort of seeing how that engagement went for that campaign. If we jump back into response for a moment, I can show you that compare mailing setting. So again, we've got this mailings tab, but if we jump into this compare mailings tab, what we can do is select multiple mailings at once to compare. So maybe, for example, you send out a weekly newsletter, you want to see how the past 4 have compared to each other. You can go ahead and select those emails, or maybe this one, which is going to different audiences, you want to compare what that looks like. Select all of the ones that you want to compare. You can come over here to this little compare dropdown, and then you have a couple of options. So you can download a performance summary. That's just going to be like a detailed report of the response data that we just saw for each of these emails. A click summary, so that's really going to be looking at the clicks each link received in these emails that we've selected here. Or a classic summary, which is just going to be like a quick comparison of the results data for up to 5 mailings. So sort of a quick overview of what did those performance metrics look like, open, clicks, all of that stuff. So nice way to kind of compare if you're sending emails to different audiences, or if you want to check out how a regular email of yours is performing compared to past emails. This is a fun little feature as well. So any questions on the response portion before we jump into insights? Cool. Not seeing any yet, but we can definitely circle back if we need to. So response, again, is going to be on a campaign by campaign basis. If you really want to look at the performance metrics for your account as a whole, you're going to want to come into this Insights tab up here. So Insights is going to be gathering data about how your sub account is performing as a whole. So we've got kind of these 4 different tabs, and the first one is engagement. So right up here, you can set the time frame that you want to look at. So got a few options: monthly, quarterly, yearly, or if you want to do custom, you could even just select, all of December and see how you're comparing. And so the blue dot is going to be comparing this period, so December 1st through December 31st to the previous period, so October 31st. And so if we kind of come here, I want this, and I want it to be comparing to, so we'll do that. There we go. So now we're comparing December to November. So now we can see blue is going to be the period that we've selected. Black is going to be the period before that. So here we can see the open rate. So we can see what that percentage is. And then we can also see the difference between those 2 time periods. So if it increases, decreases, what that looks like. Same thing for click to open rate. We're also going to get the percentage last period here, and then that information about the difference between these two periods. And so this, of course, if we're looking at December this period, that kind of may make sense. A lot of holiday stuff going on. Sometimes people are inundated, so you may see some slight differences there. And then you're also going to see the campaign activity. So how many campaigns went out, and then what that increase was from the period before, how many emails were sent, and what that increase looks like, delivery rate, again with the difference, unsubscribe rate, and bounce rate. So kind of looking at that and comparing it to the previous period. We also have this sort of bar chart or line graph for your campaign performance trends. So blue is going to be the opens, black is going to be the clicks. I kind of like looking at it as a line graph, because then you can kind of see the peaks and valleys based on when you're sending. Of course, this is probably a campaign send day, and we see we got a lot of opens in the blue and then some black for the clicks. We've also got this engagement heat map. This one is really good for opens and clicks. So you can kind of see when people are opening. So the darker blue, the more kind of opens there were. So you can kind of see this view based on the heat map, based on day and time. So the more you vary your send time, the more data you're going to get here. Same thing for clicks. So it looks like opens and clicks are pretty congruent, looking like Tuesday at 7 is really kind of working there. But you're also going to kind of see that there are some subtle differences. And then send time, you can look at it here. It is sort of suggesting that Tuesday, but there is another place we can look for send time that's a little bit easier to kind of navigate. But you do have this sort of heat map option. Then here you have your detailed mailing performance. So for all the campaigns that went out from December 1st to December 31st, you are going to see that mailing name, and then just a quick side-by-side comparison of open rate, click rate, and click to open rate for all of these campaigns in this time period. So nice, easy way to kind of get a good overview of that performance. And then growth is going to be more about your audience. So this is really going to be looking at your subscriber base. So again, you can change this time period if you want to, but this is where you're going to be able to see your net members, what your beginning subscriber count was, end subscriber count, and your growth rate. So that's an awesome growth rate. You really clearly sign up strategy, whatever it was that sort of was implemented here, you definitely saw some success there. So you kind of have that line graph denoting where those signups really occurred and who was added to your audience. And then my favorite part of Insights is going to be this Trends tab. So within Trends, this is where you can see your best send time results. So I like this better than the heat map. And again, the more you vary your send, the more data the platform has to update this with. Right now, based on the opens, it's showing Tuesday between 6 and 7 a.m. It's kind of your best open rate time based on the average. And then your second time is sort of going to be that 7 to 8 a.m. on Tuesday. But again, depending on the time period, if you're varying your send times, that can definitely change. And then you'll also see your trending content. So you'll see a snapshot based on click rate of what your top kind of performing campaigns were based on click rate. So this is a nice way to kind of get a visual idea of what's performing well. So maybe you send out some very important campaigns and you expect them to perform really well. That might be reflected here. Or you might notice that there are some certain design elements that are really trending that people tend to click a little bit higher than the average. So, you know, these ones seem to have the logo, the header image, some copy. This one's got a bit of like a call to action right here, it looks like. So you can kind of start getting a visual idea for what content people are really engaging with. And for this one, you may even want to sort of, you know, back out and make it a bit of a longer time frame to see that. That will usually change your results. So here we can see top performing if we're looking at the quarter, had a video. So of course, people tend to click through to videos. So that's a great way to kind of encourage that engagement. Looks like we have a video again. And again, so it looks like we can kind of see here, these different emails and campaigns with videos are really performing well for the click to open right there. Finally, last little part you've got in this trends are going to be your trending subject lines. This is the part that irks me a little bit the most about this because it doesn't show you the subject line, just the campaign name, but you can just go ahead, click into the campaign, see what that subject line was, and sort of understand what's prompting people to open. So this one's based on open rate. And again, you can kind of see that increase from the average to sort of let you know what those highest performing.
So Nora, what's considered a good successful percentage open rate? That was a question from someone.
Yeah, for sure. So sort of like it's a little bit different by all industries, but sort of like across all of them, average open rate, you really kind of want to be around 17, 18%. So for these sort of top ones, it definitely looks like you're above that. Average click-through rate, you usually want to look for between 2 to 3%. And so again, that's a little bit different based on industry. Industry all have different averages, but typically that sort of 17, 18% open rate is going to be pretty good. Average click-through rate between 2 to 3% is going to be good. And the average click to open rate, so how many people that opened clicked, you're going to kind of want to look to be around probably like a 12 to 14% range to sort of be within that average standard. So I'll pause here, and you can export this data. So if you do export it and it takes a minute to download, you'll be able to come in and grab that export right from here. So if you export this engagement tab and it takes a minute to load, you can jump back in, find that export right here to download. But I'll pause for a moment. Any questions on this sort of insights page?
Nora, how can you increase clicks, the click rate? Any ideas?
Yeah, so one of the things that I would really recommend to increase click-through rate is going to be thinking really strategically about where you're placing your call to actions. I always recommend having your primary call to action above the fold. And so what that kind of means is if we jump down to just this trends for a moment. So I'm going to kind of change this to the quarterly again. Bear with me. So if we're talking about, let me actually just jump into this so I can kind of show you within this page. So one of the things that we kind of like to think about when we're thinking about engaging click-through rate is that you want the place where people, the action point, to be really high up. So one of the things I would recommend here, for example, this phone number, I'd recommend using that tel : to have people actually click through and call. I would definitely recommend replacing any phone numbers with that sort of telephone link. The other thing I would recommend is one of the reasons probably that this performed so well is this option to click through is really high in the email. So if someone opens this email or it just kind of got their preview tab on the left and their email preview on the right, this is easily available for them to just click without opening. So the higher up your call to action is, really the better it's going to perform because people are going to understand that's the primary action, and then people will tend to click. The other thing I recommend is having your call to actions be pretty descriptive. So instead of just like, click to read more, learn more, something like that, like something like explore the full story, take a look at our results, browse our latest stagings, something that's really descriptive about where that link will take you. That can actually really help increase people's chances of clicking because then they know exactly what they're going to be directed to. I also recommend making sure that you link every image, every logo that you bring in, and just sort of creating a lot of different opportunity points for people to engage. So whether that's a combination of hyperlink text in line with your copy, combined with maybe like a primary call to action, just designing those in a way that they're very prominent and top of the email, that's really going to encourage a lot more click through. Does that kind of answer your question and help?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And we actually have a couple of different blogs and guides on that, so I can send those over to you as well that have a few more strategy options there.
That would be great.
Yeah.
When you get to the A/B testing part, I'd love to learn about that a little bit.
Sure. So actually, it looks like we've got about 10 minutes left. So would you like to go ahead and cover the A/B section? We can talk through what that kind of campaign looks like, and then I can send you the documentation for the automation builder. That one's pretty straightforward, but that way we can kind of talk through the A/B testing a little bit instead here, if that works.
Yep, that works.
Perfect. So jumping back into campaigns then, A/B testing again is a great way to increase those click-through rates. So let's go ahead, jump into campaigns. We're going to create a new campaign again, but instead of choosing a regular email, we're going to come in and choose this A/B test option. So I'm going to go ahead and give this name. And bear with me just a moment. Cool. So what you're going to see when you come into the A/B testing, you're not going to be creating a campaign from here. You're going to have already created the campaign. So you're going to create two versions of the same campaign. And then what you can do from here is really sort of a couple of different options. So depends on what you want to test. You can either test for open rate. If you want to test for open rate, what I recommend is, for version A, you're going to choose a mailing. So you'll want to have already built out the mailings that you want to test. So if I choose version A, maybe I'll choose this example. I'll see the preview. Testing the subject line. So that is going to be sort of looking for what increases opens. Some different options there might be welcome to, maybe just say welcome here. And you also have this option to test the subject line. I'm just going to put in this for a moment. Cool. So now we've got that. We can add pre-header text. And so from here, what we can do, so this subject line, maybe we want to use it as the preview text is an extension of the welcome subject line. So all the subject line is just this welcome, and then the preview text holds the majority of the context for that. Maybe in version B, we want to send the exact same email. So we want to know what variant we're testing. In this case, it would just be subject line to increase that open. And so maybe in our version B email, we would want to maybe phrase this as learn more about staging your home as the subject line, and then maybe using the preview text to sort of have a secondary message. Another option for this would be using a question versus a statement. So what kind of subject line works best? If you're asking a question versus a statement, so same sort of subject line, same information, but phrasing it as a question versus a statement, you might want to kind of answer the question in your preview text to draw a little more interest. Maybe testing with emojis versus without emojis, testing personalization, testing sort of different options. You can even test from names. So does it work better for it to come from, marketing@showhomes.com versus the salesperson that they worked with, versus, for each campaign, maybe it's, newsletters at Campaign Monitor or newsletters at showhomes.com versus your generic sort of marketing@showhomes.com. So when you're choosing your mailings, this is where you can define either a subject line test or a from name from email test. So a couple of different options there, and I can definitely send you a list of those options so you have them handy when you're doing these. But you would want to, for version A, if you're testing opens, choose the same email. I would want to say, great, that's version A. I want that to be my first subject line. See if that increases more opens. Save that out. We're going to see it gets added to the version A. And so now we can kind of see these details right here. We can jump in and edit it. And we can also choose version B. So maybe I want to choose the exact same email. Again, maybe I want to test subject line. So maybe here, since before I used welcome as the subject and preview text for learn more, maybe I'll say learn more about staging your home. And maybe here I would want to maybe add some context like, get started today, maybe. So maybe something that's a little bit less of a welcome and more of like an encouraging and urgent action, sort of mentioning today, sort of having the preview text be a little bit more involved. So again, I could do this. If I was testing my from name, I'd probably only want to test my from name, so not both at the same time. Once you save these out, you're going to have version A and version B. So you can test those. For something like this is probably great for you to go ahead and test to see which garners more opens, and you can learn about that. And then from here, you can also choose your different testing options. So our default for a test group size is 20%. So just to kind of put that into context, if you're sending this to an audience of 100 people, we're going to send these versions to 20% of that audience. 10% of that audience would get version A, 10% would get version B. So if the audience is 100 people, 10 people get version A, 10 people get version B. That's probably not going to be enough to get like very statistically important data for that small of an audience. We recommend if you can send to 5,000 people, that's a good test group size. That's really large though. So whatever you're sending to, if it's a smaller audience, I might recommend actually bumping it up to 40% if you're sending to like under 1,000 people. And so again, we can kind of see here, we'll determine the winner based on sending equal amounts of mailing A and mailing B to this test group. And then you can choose how the winner should be chosen. So for one like this that we just talked through, we would actually want this to be highest open rate because we want to see if the subject line and pre-header text changes the open rate. So in this case, whichever one gets the highest amount of opens, that's going to be considered the winner. Other options would be highest click rate on an entire mailing. What you might want to use this for is keeping your subject line, pre-header, these details the same, and sending 2 different versions of the same email. So maybe this email has one central call to action button. So this is a test that we've actually done before. So maybe if you have a few different services listed, version A could have one central call to action button, whereas version B could have a call to action button for each service listed. So when we've tested this before with the client we were testing, their audience responded a lot better to having one central call of action as opposed to having a call to action for each service. So that may be something to kind of test, in which case you would want to see this highest click rate. Other options would be, looking at something like are all image emails sort of working better than, or not all image emails, but emails with a lot of photography, illustration, are those performing better than copy heavy emails? If we look at hyperlink text versus buttons, where hyperlink text inline perform better than buttons? Those would be some options like that. Some other things to test could be tone. So maybe an email that's really focused on, this is a really exciting time versus like, this is a really challenging time. So even testing your messaging tone, seeing which one sort of garners more clicks, garners more engagement that way. Again, I'll make sure I send these options over to you so you kind of have them available. But in that case, that's something where you want to be looking at the clicks as opposed to the opens. And so again, one thing I really highly recommend when you're doing the testing, what I personally do, I write down my hypothesis. So I write down what I'm testing, what I think is going to happen, sort of like back in elementary school science. And so that way, when I come back to look at the test after it finishes running, I know exactly what kind of action I was trying to drive. And so you never want to test more than one thing at once. So if you want to test subject lines, subject line and pre-header, only test that and leave the from name alone. If you want to test from name, keep the subject line and pre-header text exactly the same and change the from details. That way you know what it was that actually drove the winner and the results there. Otherwise, it may be sort of hard to determine what was the cause for the higher engagement. And same thing when you're sending 2 versions of the same email for click rate. I would recommend keeping the message, the content, relatively the same, except for whatever one change you want to make. So if it's testing the buttons, if it's testing your call to action copy, if it's testing images, I would only test one of those at a time so that you can always be sure what actually generated that sort of win. Last kind of one there is going to be this most clicks on a link in each mailing. I use this one a little bit less, but this could be one where maybe you have an image that people click through. So maybe this one is click here to learn more, sort of superimposed. The link is behind the image versus a one here. This is just the image, but the call to action isn't a button. Maybe you just want to add this link that was behind the image here, this link that was behind the button there, and just compare those 2 links only to see which one gets more clicks. But typically I tend to see this most clicks or highest click rate on an entire mailing a little more often. And your last option is going to be manually choosing a winner. So you can send this, it's going to send out to your test group size. And so at this point, you're going to want to jump back into your response, maybe give it 4 hours, give it enough time for people to engage with that content. And then you can look at both side by side, see the open rate, click rate, and decide which one wins. In your response data, you'll have an option to choose this is the winner. And at that point, the winning variation will then be sent to the rest of your audience. Send settings are going to be very similar to when you're sending a campaign. You can just choose the audience that you want to test. So whoever is going to be receiving this campaign, you can still exclude audience segments if you want certain segments to be excluded totally. And then you can choose what time you're going to send that test at. And you can also send an email notification to yourself when that test starts deploying. So quite a few options here, and I definitely have like a write-up resource of those different things to keep in mind when you're testing, as well as some different testing ideas that I'll send to you. But it can definitely be a lot of information, so I'll go ahead and pause. Any questions about setting up a test like this?
I guess not. So I know we're coming to the end of our time, Nora. So just to summarize, I mean, one of the questions,
Sure.
what's considered, you know, and I know there's probably not a perfect answer, but what's the minimum number of emails would you suggest in a month? Is it one a week, twice a month? And what's too much? What's considered almost spamming people with too much?
Yeah, so I would say first sort of answer to that would be, it depends on what kind of content you're sending. So if you're sending a monthly newsletter, but then you also have some different discounts going out, it's totally fine to send that newsletter and then have like a promotional discount go out like day or two after. So you don't want to be sending the same kinds of campaigns over and over again in a short span of time, because that can just be a bit of overload for people. What I recommend is sort of, taking a look at your audience and that engagement. Best practice, if you're sending out similar types of content, so your content tends to be, pretty similar promotions, information campaigns, I would recommend maybe no more than once a week. Certainly you can kind of keep an eye on your audience and who's responding. The other thing I would say is I can jump into audience, and so we may go a minute or two over, so please, if anyone needs to sign off, totally want to respect your time, but I will just show you this for a moment so you can kind of have this to reference. One thing that I like to really keep in mind when I'm thinking about the cadence of sending is actually my unengaged audience. So I can build this out based in my segments. So jumping into segments, I'll create this quickly. And of course, your criteria for an inactive audience member might be different, but a basic one that I would recommend setting up for your sub account are going to be subscribers who have received any mailing, I would say probably in the last maybe 12 weeks, so last 3 months, and then adding this criteria. So someone who's been receiving mailings for 3 months, 12 weeks, but then adding this criteria, which is saying that they have not opened any mailing, same time frame. And so this could be it. And so if we let this load for a moment, I can save this out so you have it. So it's still loading here. It's pulling those people. And so these are going to be people. So 20% of your audience have probably just updated this. These contacts have been receiving mailings for the past 12 weeks, but they haven't been opening them in 12 weeks. And so what I would do here is actually, I would start excluding these people from a campaign for maybe a month or so, at the most, maybe just 2 weeks, and then sending them a specific re-engagement campaign, maybe sort of with some news, asking them to update their preferences, asking them for a little bit more information about what they'd like to be receiving. And then that way you can sort of tailor that a little bit more. An additional layer of criteria you could add here, definitely not necessary, some people like to include it, would be people who are opening, so have not opened or have not clicked in the last 12 weeks. So again, you may tweak this a bit based on sort of what your sending cadence is like, what seems to be typical. But in this case, these people they've been receiving mailings for 12 weeks, but they're not opening or clicking these mailings in the past 12 weeks. So that does bump the number up a little bit if we add this click portion. And in this case, I would recommend when you send a campaign, exclude this unengaged segment, give them a pause, because that makes you a lot more noticeable when you finally land in their inbox again. And I can send you some examples of re-engagement campaigns that we've collected, so you can sort of review those. And then that way you sort of are getting a good idea of if people are maybe getting some email fatigue, email overload, maybe giving them some options to ask for a little bit more tailored comment, get that feedback, and then you can kind of take that into account with your future campaigns going forward.
Nora, there's a question on how do you exclude the non-open people?
Sure. Would you like me to save this out just so you have this sort of example built out?
Sure.
Cool. I'll go ahead and save that then. And so that way, if you kind of want to go back in and look at how that was built, when you're in a campaign, So for example, I'll jump into this Nora test one that I just had built. We could come in here. So let's say this is a normal campaign. We're going to go ahead and send it. I am going to go ahead through the review and send details. Just take a moment to populate that. And now here, once we choose our audience, so we can choose our recipients, any targeting that we need, and we have this little toggle button right here to exclude a segment. So then from here, you would just want to come down and choose this unengaged segment. And now anyone who's in this segment won't receive the campaign, even if they're in this recipient list. And so, you may just want to exclude them for 2 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 campaigns, sort of give them a break. And then that way, again, the reason we suggest that is just because then the next time you send to them, it catches their attention a lot more because you haven't been in their inbox. So it really makes your email stand out. So definitely kind of up to you if you want to put them on pause, but that is kind of our recommendation, just to put them on pause for a bit, make your next email in their inbox really stand out because they haven't received from you for a bit. And that next email could be something asking them, how often do you like to receive emails? What's important to you? You can even start collecting some of those contact fields, like, are you interested in staging? Are you interested in, a show home manager, something like that. And then with those details that they respond with, you can start sending, say, maybe some more targeted campaigns, get that feedback, get a better sense of what's working for people. Or if people would continue to be unengaged, really with contacts, it's quality over quantity. So at a certain point, if you send a re-engagement or 2, they're still not opening, maybe they don't use that email anymore, maybe they're out of an area that you sort of service. And so you may just want to go ahead and archive those contacts after you've tried to engage with them, because you don't want them, people who aren't engaging, you don't necessarily want them counting towards your contact limit. So an option 2 would be even to, after you've paused, sent a re-engagement campaign, maybe once or twice to these people, then going ahead and archiving them just to sort of improve your deliverability, performance a bit. And then also that way you're not sort of wasting that contact limit on people who just may not be opening these campaigns at this time for whatever reason. You could even send an email saying, hey, looks like you maybe need a break for a bit. We've gone ahead and opted you out. Here's an easy way to opt back in if you choose to do so. Give them that option and then remove them. So I can definitely send you sort of our guide for that re-engagement strategy.
Awesome stuff. I'll say I've learned a lot today. I've been using this tool for I feel like 2 years, and so the unengaged segment, I would say all of you guys, I'd recommend you do that. I think you don't want to be bombarding people who aren't opening your emails. But we're gonna record. Nora, you're gonna share the recording, so I'll put that in our next newsletter. And if you want, also, Nora, if you want to send me all the, I know we've hit you up with a bunch of stuff to include as attachments.
No
but
problem.
I can share that there, and we'll be uploading all this to Showpedia, our operations manual. So I know we were past our normal our time, but hopefully everyone found this good use and great content. Great job, Nora. And hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I'll get these resources over to you, and please feel free in the future if there's any other sort of strategic stuff you'd like to work on. I'm more than happy to help out, but really appreciate your time. Great questions. Very appreciative. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
And have a
guys.
great rest of your
Have a good
day.
one. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.